Hello, and welcome to the Over 50 Health and Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin English, founder of The Silver Edge. Our mission at The Silver Edge is to inspire men and women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond to live their strongest, healthiest, most fulfilling lives. In this podcast, we share stories of amazing individuals who are doing just that, to help motivate you to become the healthiest version of yourself, regardless of your age. And now, on to today's podcast. Hello, my guest this week is Archie Israel. Archie is a 52-year-old personal trainer, medical exercise specialist, and post-rehab conditioning specialist who has dedicated his life to obtaining optimum health. His fitness mission is to help clients make a positive change in their lives and to build a healthy lifestyle from the inside out. Archie believes a healthy lifestyle is not just about looking good, it's about being able to enjoy life. Archie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. Certainly want to talk to you about what you're doing these days in the fitness arena, but why don't we start back at the beginning and tell us, what were you like as a kid?
Well, I was a young man who loved to play football. So I started out, my father started me with football. I used to sit in the back of the yard, play football with him, and he got me all into playing that. And then I found out that I had some speed. And so then after that, I just started running. I started running track, and I started playing basketball, and I started playing just the other sports around the neighborhood. It was great, and I had a great time because my father was also a baseball player, softball player down in North Carolina, Roland, North Carolina, and he just got me all into it. You know, when you realize you have a gift and you really want to use it in the right way, I went out there and tried to do my best. But, the interesting thing is that in some cases, it was really easy for me because I was that kid that would go out there and look at something and say, okay, I can do that. And then I would do it, So played football. I played in club league. I played Beltway division right out here in Maryland. And we went around the Beltway playing all the other football players and stuff like that. And I was in the newspaper a lot when I was a little kid. I played basketball and baseball, and I was on the club league for the baseball team. But my main sport that I loved the most was basketball. And the crazy part about it is, man, when I was younger, I used to pray to God saying I want to be 6'2". Well, I'm only 5'8".
Didn't quite hit the 6'2", huh?
Yeah, never hit the 6'2". But I wanted to play basketball so much because I was a basketball fan. It was back in those days with Len Bias and all those guys, man. And I used to watch basketball all the time. And so I wanted to be basketball so much to the point that I tried to boycott my high school to go to a military academy to play. And my father didn't want me to go at that point. But my thing is that I just loved sports and I loved to play. And it was easy for me to do all that stuff. So I played when I was younger. I did not play football in high school. Like I said, I tried to boycott that thing. I played basketball as much as I could. And then when I got to college, I went out for the track team. So I never was recruited by the team. I went out there because a lot of friends said, come on out and run track, since I was bragging that I was fast. But that was a rude awakening because when I got out there, they kind of told me real quick, this is college level.
Next level fast, right?
Exactly. And I ran the 400. And so it was embarrassing because all my life I used to be a winner. And then I'm out there losing races. And so the coach told me one thing. He said, run around the track strong. And I remember being in Virginia, and we ran around that track one time, and I did it. And I made the team, but I didn't stay on the team. The coach, I remember him walking by me while I was sitting in front of my apartment, said, you made the team. Why don't you play? Why don't you run for us? And I told him, I said, listen, you only told me to do one thing, and that was come in strong. so I moved on from there. And since then, I've always been athletic. And it's just a gift that God has blessed me with. It's something that now my son, little man, has inside of him. So that's just me in a nutshell. I mean, I can go on and on about this thing, but that's just me.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're obviously naturally gifted, naturally athletic. How old were you when you started playing these sports in an organized fashion, the baseball, basketball, football? When did you start that?
I probably started around 12 years old. I want to say about 10 or 12 years old, I started playing. I remember playing football. Baseball was my first sport, and I started around then, the Wheaton Boys Club League. And I, if you ran into somebody who knew me, they would say Archie's best sport is football and baseball. I loved baseball, but then on the flip side, it was boring to me too as well.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but I loved it. So I started young, and then I played, basically all of my life until, like I told you before, when I got up to high school, all I did was play basketball at that time, and I didn't do anything else. And then I got to college and ran track.
So you get to college, you run track, and you thought of yourself as fast all your life. You're
Right.
probably pretty quick, yeah. And you get there. Talk to us a little bit about that, because it sounds like up until then you'd been very successful at everything you'd ever done, and then you get here, and all of a sudden you're a smaller fish in a bigger pond. How did you internalize that, having grown up pretty much being that bigger fish, right?
It was hard.
Mm-hmm.
And one main reason why it was hard was because I'm used to winning all the time. And I was fast. I was that person who did not have to practice running. I would get out there. I was like captain of the track team in junior high school. So I didn't have to practice it. But then I got to track, and it was like a weird experience. So I'll tell you the quick story that happened. I was on the track, and they said, well, you're fast, right? And I said, yes. And so we got on the line, and it was like 3 black guys and then 1 white gentleman. And we got on the line, and they said, let's do the 100-meter jazz, because that's your thing, right? And I said, yeah. So the guy shot the gun and said, go. And we all ran. All the black guys pulled back. It was just me and the white gentleman running. And all I can tell you is that the white gentleman just smoked me. Now, in my neighborhood, I grew up in a neighborhood where I was, there's only like 3 black people in the neighborhood. So, I mean, it wasn't a big deal, but most of the time I'm running, I'm the fastest. And the guy smoked me. And when I turn around, they all looked at me and say, welcome to college.
Okay. That's kind of a rude awakening. And
I said, right. I said, why?
On a couple levels. Yeah.
But on a couple levels. But the interesting thing is that at that point, I knew what it felt like when we used to run and we look back at the person behind us who couldn't do it. And I had that feeling inside of me, and it was embarrassing sometimes. I couldn't tell people at home like I was doing great, because I wasn't. I knew people were talking about me. I mean, I was the guy that went to Penn State, we were running indoor, and the guy lapped me, because and I was running a race that I could not run. But the thing about that is I didn't give up. And so even though people talked about me, even though people put me down and saying things, I didn't give up. I said, I'm going to run this race, and I'm going to make sure I make it. And so the key thing is that I stuck in there, and I just hung in there. I kept on practicing, because I said my race was 100 and 200, and I haven't ran for a long time. And I said, you know what? I'm going to win this race. And when we were at Virginia, I came in strong, and I was running right next to a guy who was faster than me on my team. And I could see him look out of the corner of his eye like Archie is right next to me. And when I finished that, I felt great. And that was an accomplishment for me. I didn't have to prove anything else to anybody. Mm-hmm. I just had to prove to myself that I could do it. So it was a humbling experience, but I'm glad I got that, because one problem that I think we have as athletes that are very, very good, we do not know how it feels to be on the other side. And when we get a taste of that other side, we began to understand, like, we can't always tell somebody, oh, you can do it, you can go out there and make it. Sometimes people can't. But in my case, I was able to make it through. Now, I didn't win a race, but I reached the goal that I wanted to reach, was to come in strong.
Yeah, so there's a lot in there we could unpack, right? That's a great story. So thanks for sharing that. But I think you're right. I think that there's growth that happens when we struggle, and when we don't achieve what we set out to achieve. And I think that there's growth and there's character building as well, right? I mean, it's easy to have great character when you're when you're succeeding all the time, but when you fail or when you meet obstacles that are difficult to overcome, that's really where we start to develop some of these things. Right. And I think in that story, that's kind of what I'm hearing there as you're talking through that. All right. So we got you at college here. Still obviously pretty fit and taking care of yourself. And that's a big part of who you are and your lifestyle. Right. What happens after college?
Well, after college, I went to school for business, and I came out, and I just started going to the gym and just working out, doing my thing. a friend of mine comes along and says, why don't you become a personal trainer? And back then, we used to laugh at personal trainers because personal trainers had the shirt, the Gold's Gym shirt cut all the way down to the mid part of their chest and muscles popping all over the place and wearing tights. Mm-hmm. And I used to sit back and just laugh at that whole thing, thinking like, this is crazy. I'm not going to be a personal trainer. And so I went to my first AFA personal training certification. And so I got there and I got the certification. And again, at that point, I thought it was a joke. I'm like, man, this is like 3-day weekend. And how am I supposed to train anybody? And so I just kind of played around with it. But what I did, I continued to work out. So I always stayed in the gym. I was in the gym 4 to 5 times a week. I was running outside and I was doing all those things. And then from that, I started getting more into personal training and I got another certification and I kept getting more and more certifications. And then I realized that this was a good thing to do because I started investing in people's lives for what I knew happened to me. So I was able to invest in them and push them into directions that they wanted to go in their lives.
So, okay. Yeah. And I hear you on the personal trainer thing. So it sounds like you get out of college, and a lot of people think of their interactions with the personal trainer is probably somebody maybe in a Globo gym, and they're probably very young, and that's typically where personal trainers maybe start their careers. So maybe not very experienced. And to your point, the bar for entry to become a personal trainer is not tremendous, right?
Right.
But that most people that get into that, they get into that because they're passionate about health and fitness. And to your point, they've seen what it's done to their life and they want to share that with others. And certainly that's, we could all use the world could use more of that. So it sounds like you kind of grew into personal training. It's not something that you when you first heard about it, you're like, I don't know about this, but so you had the degree in business and now you're starting to train some folks. Do you keep up? I mean, at your age now, you're obviously very fit now. You're obviously very fit as a young man. In between, have you managed to maintain your fitness through your entire life so far?
Man, you know what? That's one of the things that it's funny that you said that because no, So the thing is like before I got married, man, I was in the gym all the time. I was working out all the time, and then I got married. Then we have child, you get all this stuff happening to you. You get successful in business, and then now you have all these things happening to you, and you no longer have the ability to do, what you want to do. And then I left my day job and I started doing training full time. And now that becomes a whole different dynamic because when you're at work, you can kind of figure out the times you want to eat, when you don't want to eat, when you want to work out. And now when you're working for yourself, man, it becomes hard. You can't find time to eat, especially, if you start getting good at it, you can't find time. So, man, no, I basically went down for a little bit, and one of the things that really helped me out, it's the most incredible thing. One of the clients told me, why don't you get on Instagram? And I said, what for? I said, I don't see anything in that. And so I got on there and I started doing my, just putting pictures up. I'm 52. I had no idea what I'm doing. But along the way, I saw a guy named Cameron A. House. And I contribute this to him most of the time because I've never had a trainer. I've always worked for myself. And I saw that gentleman on there and I told my wife, I said, you know what? This gentleman reminds me of me when I was younger. It reminds me, I said, the stuff he's doing reminds me of me. And then I started trying to do the stuff. And I said, I can't do it. And I got upset again. And it felt like me being back at college on that track, saying to myself, you know what, I'm not going to let this go. And I got back into trying to do all the things I could do to get fit again. So I needed a spark in my life to kind of push me forward to get back into it. Now, I've never really been totally out of shape. But let me tell you, back in the day, doing a squat 315 pounds and doing that 15 reps with no problem. Now I go over there and look at 315. I say to myself, man, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, right.
But the thing is, I went down and then I found some way or somebody to kind of push me forward so I can kind of get back into my rhythm again. So, yeah, there has been times in my life, doing all these things right well. I wasn't doing things so well at one point.
I think that's a common story. I think I hear that a lot. I've heard that certainly on this podcast and other places. And I think what happens is as younger people, we have all the time in the world, right? And if we're inclined to be active, we can spend all our time in the gym, our sports, whatever our passion is. And then as we mature and we grow, a lot of us, we get married, we have kids. That's about when our careers are usually taking off. And all of a sudden, self-care and that time for that me time, so to speak, those hours that we'd be spending with our friends or in the gym, et cetera, it's gone. And, for some of us, it doesn't end well. For others, it's like you, it sounds like it's more of a speed bump than, crash and burn. But some people certainly, that's a decline that they don't come back from. And others find ways, like you said, it sounds like you found somebody on Instagram that kind of relit the fire a little bit and say, okay, wait a minute. This is, I can do this. Right. So what started you? Why did you decide to start your Instagram account? Because that's how I found you. I found you on Instagram.
Well, again, it was a client, and a client said to me, she said, you need to get on Instagram. And again, I had no idea. I had a web page up, and I had Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, but I wasn't using any of them. And I got on there and I just started posting pictures. And, the pictures I was posting of me and being more of my motivational self, speaking and talking and saying things. And I just didn't, I got to be honest with you, I wasn't feeling it at first. And at somewhere in there, like I said, I met the gentleman and I started seeing what he was doing. And I said to my wife, like, I used to do that. I used to do the 2 medicine ball plank, I said, all this stuff we used to do. And I said, but I can't do it. And the reason why is because I became successful in my business and training. I'm training. I wake up in the morning at 4:00 and I don't come home till 9:00. And so there's no time for me to go to the gym. And so when I started to express that to people out there and say, listen, this is my problem, I noticed that other trainers started chiming in and saying, man, you know what? We totally agree with you. Life comes in, you get busy, and you no longer can do stuff. And so when I got on there and I started posting, and I started being real. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to just try to follow this gentleman. The most amazing thing happened. I started following him, and then people started following me. Then all of a sudden this team formed that I didn't even know was forming. And if you look at it closely, you can see us all. There's probably about 20 or 30 of us in a team. And everybody's like, and we're all pretty much the same age. We're like, go for it. And then during that whole process, it became about me. And I told my wife, I said, I understand it now. It's a community. You find yourself your community. You get with your community. You have fun with your community. And since I don't have anybody to push me because I'm out here on my own, these are the people who push me. And so I noticed over time, I've gotten stronger. The funny thing is, when you're a trainer in a gym, you have people around you that you can bounce stuff off of and say, hey, man, try this exercise, do this exercise, learn this. But then when you become successful and you leave the gym and you're out there on your own, you have no one else. And then people come to you and ask you stuff and you're telling them, but you don't have anybody above you that you can reach out to. And so what happened was this became more of a community where I can talk to people who are way better than me. And they'll say, hey, Archie, try this out. And I go, oh, man, let me try it. Now, in some cases, it gets a little crazy. People say, Archie, try this one, stand on your head, do so. I can't do all that stuff. But the thing is, I know my limitation. But it became a community of understanding people and they understanding me, and we all getting together, getting to know each other and just share. So that's how the Instagram thing began.
That's a great story. And I think there's a lot in there with the whole Instagram and the community, right? And a lot of people might not realize that trainers need trainers and coaches need coaches.
Right. Exactly.
And it's interesting how this social media, how it's grown. And to be sure, there's just a lot of garbage in there, but there's a lot of good that's coming out of this. I'm personally also very new to the Instagram and Facebook and trying to make my way here and figure this out. But I'm with you. There's it's kind of strange how this organic community just sort of forms. And there's these people that I've never met in person, and we have these conversations. And but there's, to your point, there's learning, right? There's inspiring. There's holding accountability. Right. So a lot of that built in there. All right. So you've got your practice up and going. Like you said, you kind of left your gym. You're out on your own. Now, obviously you're coaching in person, and for folks listening to this in the future, we're recording this in September of 2020. So we're right somewhere in the middle, maybe the end, hopefully, of the COVID-19 pandemic. But do you coach primarily online, on in person, some combination, or how does that work?
Well, right now is pretty much online. I only have like maybe one or two people that I'll see out in the
Mm-hmm.
field, but mostly everything is online. And the funny thing, Kevin, is that being 52, I never imagined that. You know,
Right. No, I'm with you there. Yeah.
I only imagine like being, in front of somebody and
Mm-hmm.
training. And the funny thing is, I sit back and look at it and say, we used to laugh at this. We used to sit back and say, hey, I don't want to train online. And now I find myself training online. So most of my clients are all online. We have fun. It's amazing that most of the people will say, I didn't believe it was this fun, and some people are like, man, I thought it was going to be boring, but we're having a great time. So, yeah, everything is online.
Yeah, and if anybody's follow you or looks at your Instagram account, I can see the fun factor coming through. So these days certainly have a lot of at home type of workouts, and you have a lot of fun, right? I
Exactly.
mean, you're
Yeah,
showing
yeah. You got to.
some sort of a
You got
movement
to.
each. Is it every day that you're posting, or how often are you doing?
Every
Every
day,
day?
every day, every day. It first started off like once a week,
Yeah,
but then people started asking questions, so I started doing every day. So it's every day.
that's great. And then on Fridays you have a special guest. Is that right?
Oh yeah, I have my son, Little Man. Little Man comes on his Father's Friday, and it's interesting how that began. His doctor, pediatrician, said, "Hey, listen, I want you to do Father Fridays for us," and we were like, "Okay." And we posted one time, and then again, that community started saying, "Hey, we like it," and then we posted another time, and the next thing you know, people were like, "Hey, we love it." Now, then the problem became because the family started getting wind of the whole thing, and they're like, hey, we want Father Friday too. So it was Father Friday on Facebook and Father Friday on Instagram. And then my father created Saturday, Pop Saturday.
Okay. Yeah.
So it became something huge. And I don't know where we're going to go from there. Little Man always talks about Ryan. So I don't know if it's going to get to that point or not. But we have fun. And it was just a way for me to do something at home with him because of this crisis that we're
Sure.
in.
Yeah. And that's great that you've got him involved in that and part of that community. All
Yeah.
righty. Well, let's switch gears a little bit from the social
Sure.
media to let's talk a little bit about training. So these days,
Okay.
are you able to, you look like you're pretty fit. I'm guessing you're taking care of yourself as well. Are you? Okay.
Oh yeah. I'm taking,
What
yeah.
does a typical training week look like for you? What are you doing for yourself these days?
Well, these days I'm in here and I'm in my house. I basically have some kettlebells, some power blocks, some parallel bars, and some battle ropes. And pretty much I try to, believe it or not, some days I'm working out with my clients and some days I'm working out on my own. My days are set up like chest one day, leg one day, back one day, core the next day. And the reason why I really kind of fuse all of them in like that and really chorus every day because I have low back issues. So I spend more time doing stabilization exercise throughout the week. But if I say I'm doing core on one day, it's me really working the core by itself. So I'm doing it during the week and I'm doing it on the days I can get them in, when I can get them in. And it's been working for me. Last night was the first night that I went back to the gym, which was kind of nerve wracking. And I went back there and I did a chest workout, and I still got to go through my mind to think if I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
So that's my week.
Yeah. So, okay. So obviously at home. And I know that,
Right.
here in September, some states have gyms open, some don't, some require masks, some aren't,
Right.
but limited capacity, all that. So it's a bit challenging right now, but it's fair to say that you're working out, did you say about 5 days a week?
5 days a week.
Okay.
I'm doing 5 days a week and also running. I forgot to mention this. I run a mile at least 3 times a week.
Okay.
Yeah. So I get out there.
Yep.
Yeah. Get it out. Yeah. Get out there and do it.
Getting it done. All right. And then, so with the 5 day a week kind of workouts and getting a couple of cardio days in there as well, a few days, what are your takes on recovery? What do you do to recover and practice some self-care so that you're able to get back at it again the next day?
Well, really, I take a day. The weekends I take off. And so I try to do that 5 day, and then the weekends I take off. I spend a lot of time on the foam roller to recover. I love the foam roller. I try to eat well as much as I can. And then on those off days, we're doing like walking, stuff like that, and spending time with family. Recovery is key. You know that because we break down the muscle fibers as we work out. And then when we rest, they actually build up. So for me, and it's kind of hard because I have this little one in the house. So trying to recover the way that I used to recover is not the same. Before, and when he's at school, I'm able to work out during the week, come home and take those day breaks and eat well and relax. But now when I'm done, it's back outside with him trying to do some other things. It's hard to fit a lot of that stuff in, but because of this crisis, it makes it just a tad bit difficult. I got my child late, so it takes a little bit. It's challenging, but I get it in as much as I can.
That's well said, right? We have to get these things in where we can, and certainly have to be able to adjust to what life is going to throw at us. And right now, like you said, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Gyms are closed or open. Most kids are home, and so we're trying to be parents and teachers when normally we wouldn't be. Kind of crazy. You mentioned a little bit about part of your recovery strategy being nutrition. What are your thoughts on nutrition? What are you doing for diet and nutrition? Yeah,
nutrition is key. Again, we all know that 80% of your workout is the eating part. And I spend most of my time eating. That's something that I've always done. Again, with this crisis in the child, it's kind of hard to get stuff in. But I used to do it every 3 hours a day. I would have something to eat. And I'm getting back into that. Remember I mentioned before, like, it's hard to kind of work this stuff through. But I wake up in the morning and I try to get my breakfast in. If I'm training early in the morning, I'll get a protein bar in. About 9 o'clock, I'm getting something else in. At 12 o'clock, I'm getting something else in. There's been days where I miss it and I just tack everything in like between 3 and 6. But I spend most of my time trying to get in vegetables, the right type of protein, and I try to stay away from sweets as much as I can. But it's kind of hard. And as I told clients, if you can do it great during the week, and you can just have one day on the weekend to get like a little bit of sweets in for you, try to get it in, because you just want to break it up. So I try to eat as much as chicken as I can. I'm a chicken and a tuna fish guy. I used to love salmon, but I broke out.
Yeah, all right. Working some tuna in there. Okay.
But it's the tuna and it's the chicken and it's the turkey. And then it's a lot of vegetables. I don't have any specific diet that I do. Okay. So it's just, for me, I'm old school. I'm eating clean. Now, when it comes to the protein source, I'm going to eat a protein bar, maybe a protein shake. Those are my little quick supplements. But other than that, it's straight, chicken, fish, and turkey, and my vegetables.
Yeah, so that sounds like a lot of whole foods, right? I mean, you mentioned protein bars and maybe the occasional shake, but lots of meats and vegetables prioritized there. What about carb sources? Do you do a lot of carbs, few carbs, or?
Well, right now, and it's funny that you brought that up because right now I'm doing just few carbs, but that's, this whole trying to figure out that carb thing is kind of tough, right? Because you want to put in the right amount to do the workout, but then you don't want to put in too much because you don't want to get fat, right? And so I've been playing around with a little bit, just hanging around with like 25% of carbs during a day. But the crazy part about the whole thing is that I'm running a mile every other day. And so it's like, hey, listen, how do I play around with this? Because that's the new thing for me. I'm a sprinter. I'm not a long distance runner. And so I'm learning the whole process of long distance running. And so lately I've been doing the 25% on the carbs, 35% on the fat, 40% on the protein, trying to do those well. But then on my running days, I figured out like I need to add more carbs in to recover for the next running day, So my carbs, like last night, was sweet potatoes, brown rice. Those are just my tried and true.
Yeah,
sweet
those are the go-to right
rice.
there. Yeah, if you're doing sweet potatoes and brown rice, that's it, man. Yeah,
right, and that's it. So, and I'll bring this up. Sometimes I don't talk about nutrition a whole lot because I'm the old bodybuilder back in the day. Back in the day where when we woke up, all we ate was the same thing every day and it did not change. So I would have rice, mixed vegetables, and chicken 3 times a day. It didn't change. I would have a sweet potato in there someplace. I would have my protein shake before I work out, protein shake after I work out. And before I went to bed, I had tuna fish because it was light on the stomach, or salmon. And then I had vegetables again and rice, and I went to sleep. But everybody can't eat like that. I can't. I used to eat like that. I can't do that now. But I'm trying to get back to that at this point. And this is just a little strategy that I'm working with, that I'm playing with now, trying to do that.
And do you use a app or anything for tracking your macros?
How did I know you were going to say that?
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask if you tracked your macros, but very clearly you do. If you got the 40, 35, 25 split, you're on it.
Yeah. So lately I got this thing called Carb Manager. So I've been using that lately.
Okay.
I have Fitness Pal. I've been using Fitness Pal for a while, but someone turned me on to Carb Manager. So I used that, and that kind of really got into the macros a little different for me. And I started following that around. Before, I was the person who wrote all that stuff down. And I think along the way, I just got tired of writing that stuff down. But to be honest with you, writing it down gets you to where you want to get to. It helps you to reach your goal because you're able to see what you're actually putting in your body. And you and I know that, putting in 35 or 4,000 milligrams of sodium is not going to get you there.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to figure it out and figure out, I'm going to go natural whole foods, and I'm going to just try to follow this whole thing through. And I try not to talk about those apps too much in this house because I might not be able to sleep here the next couple of days.
All right, fair enough. Yeah. Well, we like to use the technology where we can. So yeah, I use the MyFitnessPal as well.
Right.
And I also have experimented with that macro split. Right. What's right for me? Because you're right, especially with the carbs in particular. I find that the trick is just eating whole foods. That's the baseline, right? But then from there with those carbs, it's exactly what you said. How many carbs do I need to fuel what I'm doing?
Right.
And then figuring out what that is and how that looks. Because obviously those excess carbs are going to get stored as fat if you're not burning them. So yeah, it's fun doing the self-experimentation and it's kind of a lifelong pursuit, I suspect.
Right.
All righty. Well, so we've covered your thoughts on working out, nutrition, and recovery. I'd like to talk a little bit about your faith. I believe I saw in your bio that you have a master's in divinity. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Talk a little bit, and I think that comes through also in your personality and your posts. It's clearly very important to you. Can you talk a little bit about how your faith affects your approach to life and also to fitness and wellness and health?
The funny thing is, I was called into the ministry when I was young, around 12, and I kind of just basically ran from it. I didn't want to touch it at all. And it's just interesting how it all came back where what I began to understand is that in order for me to be a better person, I actually have to understand who I am on the inside. There was this one saying this person said to me, it says, what you have makes who you are. If you lose what you have, then who are you? And when we look at that in the context of maybe we're talking about the stuff that we actually have in our lives. But then I began to look at it as if God was to take away everything from us and our soul was sitting right there, who would I be? And so from that standpoint, I began to look at that, in order to actually motivate people and get them to the next level, we have to really understand who we are on the inside. And so for me, the fitness for this all meant to me about building up the inside first and then going to the outside of your body. Because if you're not happy on the inside, the outside of the body, you're not going to be happy. And so having this relationship with God and understanding how he works on the inside of me allowed me to understand how to project it to someone else so that they can kind of figure it out for themselves. But do I have, here's the interesting thing. Do I have conversations all the time with my clients about, God and health? No, but there are some that we do. And they come out of it and they say, man, it's so great talking to you about it because it allowed me to see something in a different light, in a different way. So God has allowed me to be able to project his love and grace on other folks, but also allow to reach people where they are and allow him to kind of change and change their direction in life. So that's what has happened for me. And it blessed my life going through that. And so it's just this connection. This, if you don't work on the inside of you and really have this desire to lose weight, you're never going to really lose it. You can lose it on the outside, like what happened with Biggest Losers, right? But then what happens is if you haven't really changed that person on the inside, you're going to gain weight again. So it's all about from the inside out. And I just appreciate the fact of how he brought that together in my life and allowed me to kind of be able to channel that out to other people so that they can understand too well that it's bigger than just looking good on the outside. is how you feel inside. You also know that most of the people out there who are we used to call them big boned, but they're not really big boned people. There's no such thing as big bone. But,
Yeah.
these people out there who are healthier than some people who are skinny because they spend more time working out, and it all just came together for me that it's really important to work on the inner man and get that person straight before we get the outer man straight.
There's a lot we can unpack from that, but and thanks for sharing that. I certainly think that talking about the inner man and the outer man, or inner person, outer person, we often hear people in the fitness space, people coming looking for fitness or nutrition advice, saying,
Right.
I want to lose X amount of weight, or I want to be quote unquote in shape. Typically it's, I want to lose weight. And it's usually some random number in the scale that they think in their mind is where they should be. When you start to probe, they said, well, I'll be happier when I'm at that weight. And to your point, maybe you will, and maybe you won't. That joy or that spark or that happiness that you're referring to, typically talking about this person who wants to lose weight, probably isn't going to come about from a change in your physical appearance. That's an internal thing, right? And I think that what you were describing, the way you internalize and manifest your faith, that describes that process very beautifully, right? That we're going to need to accept ourselves and find that joy within ourselves, and then that will manifest itself outwardly in our bodies, in our life, and through our relationships, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. I mean, most of the clients that I ran into, those are the stories I was getting from them. When you start asking clients when they lost all the weight, how did you do it? Well, Archie, I either went through a trouble in my life and I said I had enough. Then I started running. And then I started feeling happy about myself, allowing myself to know that there's more to me than just this relationship that I had. And then from there, Archie, I began to look at my macros and started figuring that out. And the next thing you know, that I got to this point. And so for me, it just became this thing of every person who made it to the point of their goal, losing weight or gaining weight or whatever, they made a conscious decision within themselves. I'm tired. Or I got to make it to this next level. For all those people out there who don't do that, never made it to their goal. And the funny thing is, I've trained with folks who would pay me a lot of money, and I'll try to push them as much as I could. And I've heard trainers out there say, oh, well, I will basically fire them because they're not making me look good as a trainer. And I said, that's ridiculous. I stayed with them. And then when they got to that point, they were like, oh, man, Archie, I got it now. And I said, told you that this is it. And, I just said, really wasn't me. It was this choice inside of you to say, I had enough, or I'm going to, Archie, the funny thing is, Kevin, is that some people will start confessing their sins real quick when they get right up to that point where they start to lose the weight. They say, Archie, you know what? I used to sit at home and eat jelly beans all day. And all the times I'm saying, all the times I'm telling them, like, eat right. They go, yeah, I'm eating right. But at the end of the day, they're like, I've been eating jelly beans, or Archie, I eat cookies late at night, and they said there was a change inside of them that they wanted to, get to the next level. And they did. Hopefully, people hearing this won't wait till it's a medical condition to get to the next level. Do it now.
Yeah, right. So I think the best trainer in the world won't be successful with somebody who, like you said, hasn't had that internal trigger to make that change, right? You just, or, you see things like drastic examples. You mentioned the Greatest Loser, where they're put in a ridiculous situation, and yeah, it's possible to physically lose weight or gain muscle, I suppose. But typically you see, that's why the diet culture just doesn't work. People do something drastic for a short amount of time. They don't like it. They haven't internalized that right process to make this a lifestyle change. So a lot there. And certainly, like you said, hopefully people don't get to a too unhealthy of an event or have a scary medical event that kind of precipitates this change.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think maybe a good segue from there is, why don't you talk about what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe listening to this, or maybe they find you on Instagram, who's doesn't have your background, has not been healthy or active all their life, but they're in their 50s, 60s, and they're kind of have some metabolic diseases. They're have some health issues, probably overweight. What advice do you have to those folks in terms of getting started on a healthy lifestyle?
Well, first of all, I would tell them go seek their doctor first to make sure everything is okay. And then go out and if they're looking for a personal trainer, a fitness trainer, go out and find somebody who understands your condition. Okay, just don't go to the person who, they look like they're doing something great and all their exercises look really fun. Do your education by understanding the client, understanding the trainer, get to know that person, understand if they understand your condition. That's the first thing if you're going down that direction. But the key thing is search in your heart and try to figure out kind of goals you want to make, and make some small goals set some goals that are small that you can make them each day. And it has to be something simple. Small goals are the winners. Don't set expectations so high that it's going to cost you to just give up really soon. Set a small goal. It may be just if you cannot move, if you're in your house right now, just stand up and sit down and do like about 3 or 4 squats if your knees are okay. Start off with that and say, like, every week we're going to add 1 squat to it. If it's somebody who can walk down to their mailbox, walk down to your mailbox and back and say, we're going to start there. After that, go to the next mailbox and the next mailbox after that. It's the small goals that win. In order to get to a certain place in life, you got to take the little itty bitty, and we all do it. We do it in education. We do it in our lives, when it's our relationships or anything like that. We take these small steps, and then we finally get to a point where it becomes easier. A good example would be me starting to do long distance running. I'm a sprinter. I cannot do long distance running. And we got a park out here by us. It's an amazing park. And the first time I went out there, I tried to run a mile, and I got hills and valleys, and the brother stopped about 4 times.
Yeah.
But it took me from March to now to be able to run around that park without stopping. Now, along the way, I started getting all these little hints and little tips to do it, but it takes those small steps. So for anybody that's in that situation who's listening to me right now, just do something small today. Even if, calling your doctor is a small step. Writing your goals out on a piece of paper is a small step. Calling somebody that can be accountable to you, you can say, hey, listen, I'm going to tell you this, what I'm going to do. That's a small step. And then slowly begin to progress that. I want to say this. I know people who want to lose weight and they jumped out there real hard, started grabbing the battle rope, started doing jump squats and all that kind of stuff. Listen, if you have been sitting down, here's one key thing that I find out is going to be one of the biggest problems coming out of this whole crisis. We're sitting down too much. And when we sit down too much, we axle loading on our spine, our hip flexors are getting tight, our QLs and all those little muscles in the lower part of our back are getting tight. And when we get up and we're going to try to sprint out the house and do something, we're going to have low back pain, we're going to have neck pain, we're going to have shoulder pain. And your key thing really is to take small steps, because I don't want to hear a whole bunch of people saying that, the news is going to say it, PTs are packed, because of the fact that people haven't been taking care of themselves. So right now, just take the small steps out of the house. I know I repeated that about 20 times. I'm trying to get it into somebody's mind.
Yeah.
Take the small steps and get out of the house, or with a face mask on. If you're in your house, do just some basic things to help you. And the other small step that I think people need to look at is what we eat. I know it's hard to kind of eat the right way, especially when you've been eating a certain way for so many years. And what I was saying is that the person should at least take one step in making a change in their eating patterns. Even if it's like one day, to eat right, and then the rest of the week I'm going to eat the normal way. And then what you would do from there is slowly tack on days until you have the whole week. Some people, that might be too hard for them. They can do one meal in one day, for the week. But just do some simple things that's going to help you move into the right direction of your goal. And so really my key point to everything I'm saying is it's the small steps that's going to win.
Yeah, those small steps that can become habits and eventually ingrained into a lifestyle. Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think that's very well said and great advice. Well, Archie, as we're wrapping up here, what's next for you? What do you have on the horizon here, looking out over the next year or two? I know a lot's really uncertain given the craziness all around us right now, but what's on deck for you?
Well, since I got this little following on Instagram, and now I'm training online. This is my new thing. I love training online. I hope I hope that grows. I began to love this whole Zoom thing. And if I could, really the key thing is if I could change like at least one person out of all of this, I'll be happy. But the key thing is doing this, having fun. This is what I love to do. And if I can put a smile on somebody's face, if I can get somebody to be functionally fit, the biggest things for me, I didn't mention this before, I'm a medical exercise specialist, but the biggest thing for me is when I train somebody that has 2 total knee replacements and then they're going back out and playing tennis. The biggest thing for me is when you have somebody with low back pain and they're going back outside and they say, hey, Archie, I can hit the golf balls a little bit better. If I can change like 1 or 2 people's lives or help them change, that's the blessing for me. So going forward, man, is trying to touch as many people I can through doing this internet, the Zoom thing.
Great. Well, certainly your enthusiasm comes through. I mean, you just have a fun demeanor. You have a great appreciation of what you're doing. So I guess just in wrapping up then, I just want to ask, where can people get in touch with you? And obviously you're very active on Instagram, and I can drop that in the show notes, but what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah. So my website will be up soon. I do have one up, but it's fortisfitdc.com. That will come up soon. That should be up shortly. And you can reach me, phone number 301-801-7712, or you can email me at archie@fortisfitdc.com.
Great. I'll drop all that in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like you got an online practice up and running, and that's your future, right? So are you accepting new clients if people wanted to work with you?
Oh, yeah. I'm accepting them now. Yeah.
All right. Well, Archie, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing your experience and your wisdom with us, your thoughts on health and fitness. You're a fantastic ambassador for healthy aging. Really enjoy talking to you. So best of luck in all your future endeavors.
Thank you, man. I appreciate being on the show with you, man. And just keep doing what you're doing.
Well, that's our show for today, folks. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends and please consider subscribing and giving us a 5-star review. All the show notes and much more are available at our website at silver-edge.com. That's silver-edge.com. So until next time, stay strong.